Good evening, and welcome to Beaumont City Council Workshop of April 30th, 2024. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 5:01. There is a request for Mayor Finn to participate via telecommunication for this meeting. Government Code Section 54953 requires a motion to the council before proceeding. Mayor Finn, could you please state your request?
Yes, sir. Thank you. So, council, I'm requesting to participate via Zoom this evening with just cause of a contagious illness. Currently, there are 3 family members over the age of 18 with me in my home. Thank you.
Can we get a motion? Can I get a motion to approve Mayor Finn's request?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second. Have a roll call?
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Voigt?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lara?
Yes. Okay, motion carries. Will you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Right hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. We don't have any conflict of interest or disclosures this evening. Move on to public comment. Any one person may address City Council on any matter on this agenda. If you wish to speak, please fill out a public comment form provided at the back table and give it to the city clerk. There is a 3-minute time limit on public comments. There will be no sharing or passing of time to another person. State law prohibits City Council from discussing or taking actions brought up by your comments. Do we have any public comments?
I have no written requests. Rudy, do we have any callers on the line?
I have no callers on the line.
No comment. All right, no comments. That brings us to action items, to a packed house. Action item C1, fiscal year 2024-25 citywide budget and 5-year capital improvement plan. Staff report, Ms. Jennifer Eustachian.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the workshop for the fiscal year 24-25 fiscal year budget. So can you all see my slides? There we go. Okay. All right, so first, just a little bit of what we're going to be talking about this evening. We're going to go over the budget timeline and requirements, the budget building process. We're going to start with wastewater fund and give an overview. Wastewater enhancement request, general fund, long-term forecast, and fund balance, general fund overview and highlights, department enhancement requests, those will be presented by the department heads, and capital improvement plan. Just to go over the budget requirements, the city is required to adopt a balanced budget by June 30 of each year. And a balanced budget provides that revenues meet or exceed expenses, and this can include planned drawdown of available reserves or allocation of fund balances. And this is the first meeting to review the budget. The goal is to seek input as to whether additional information is needed by the City Council and/or whether modifications are required prior to adoption. And if the City Council is comfortable with the proposed budget with minor changes, it will be brought back for adoption with those changes by June 4th. And if the City Council wants to review additional information or requires more substantive changes, then it's likely an additional meeting will be required. And this is just the process, it's a timeline of how the budget is built. Specifically to note on this or highlight on this slide is that this is a citywide process. Everyone is involved in this, and we all, put everything together, meet with city manager. There's multiple meetings for that. Then we bring it to review with City Council. There is an additional workshop meeting in here in May in case we need to have that, and then bringing it to adoption in June. And with that, I'm going to get started with the wastewater fund. So the fiscal year 25 proposed budget for wastewater has revenues at $14.8 million, expenses at $14.6, with a surplus of $180,000, and that's prior to any enhancement requests. Revenues have increased by 1.3 million, and that's 10% from the fiscal year '24 budget. And expenses have increased by a million, and that's 7% from the fiscal year '24 budget. Budgeted revenues for the wastewater system are increasing from 13.4 million in '24 to 14.8 in fiscal year '25. And this is driven by a growth factor applied for new connections to the system and rate increase from the recently adopted sewer rate study. As you'll notice, there's a kind of a larger difference from fiscal year '24 to the fiscal year '25, and that is because the rate increase for fiscal year '24 took place in September. There was not a budget amendment that was done to capture that, so that's it. You're seeing the difference now from that rate increase. This is your explanation of the wastewater operating fund expenses. Personnel costs have changed slightly, and that's just to account for merit increases throughout the year. Operating costs have increased due to admin overhead to the general fund, utilities and supplies, and contingency has slightly increased, and that's to account for higher emergency costs, and it went from 200,000 to 220,500. Before I pass it to Thaxton Van Bell to go over his enhancement requests, are there any questions?
Good evening. Before you is our capital purchase and improvement list for wastewater funds. Item number 1 is sewer bridge coating and inspection. Sewer bridge conveys wastewater from the Noble Creek lift station over to the Marshall lift station. So if you're ever driving on the 10 there by Three Rings Ranch and see that pipe above ground, that's what we're talking about. It's time to coat that and strap it back down to its bridge and then give a lifetime assessment. Next up, aeration sleeves. Our aeration basin produces air for the microbiology. Each section has like a neoprene sleeve over it. They have an estimated lifespan of 5 to 8 years. We'd like to do a study on them to see where we stand in that span instead of just arbitrarily buying at the 5-year mark. We're also requesting a small truck. We added an engineer to our department. He is doing a lot of field work with our projects. Also, it can be utilized for industrial inspections, things like sampling equipment. Things are better in the back of a truck than inside of a car. And then lastly, construction of internet service junctions and conduit. So as the town is developed, we do have some fiber running by some of our lift stations now, and we'd like to reach in and tap into that to have a direct wired connection. We started on radio. We went to cellular, and now at some of the stations this is available, but we're required to make the junction basically from the street into the infrastructure. And that concludes our request. If you have any questions, I'm glad to answer.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yeah, just a quick question back to the increase for the operating. So the explanation shows due to admin, utilities, and supplies. So it looks like about a 945,000 increase. What do you, what's the most significant part of that on that breakdown?
The transfer over to the general fund, the admin overhead, increased from 650 to 1.5 million.
Oh, okay. That would explain. Okay.
And it's solely being funded by you guys now versus the general fund, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the overhead charge, right?
They're
That
paying
comes,
for.
that comes from wastewater to the general fund. Yeah, so during the wastewater study, this is all basis from our cost allocation plan that took place a couple years back. And what they did is they review what the administrative costs are, and then they review on the other funds what they should be paying for their administrative costs. And so that was an identified amount within that study that was then included in the wastewater rate study. And so we have now programmed that into the budget for this fiscal year.
And that should be covered by the revenues?
Right, right.
All right, so, okay, good. All right, thank you.
Yeah, I was trying to sort of acclimate myself to what I got here in front of me. So I don't know if this was your question, Mr. Martinez, but I'm looking at this slide where the operating amended budget is,
The green and red.
yeah, did you already bring up the green part?
Yeah.
Okay. So why, so I apologize, but so why is that?
The revenue.
Same question we just had.
Same question.
Same question.
Yeah, okay. So if it was answered, I'm good.
Are you sure?
Yep, I trust you guys.
It should be self-sustained, or not self-sustained, but
Yeah,
it should
no,
be.
Right.
yeah,
Right, right.
So, you know what, Mayor Finn, do you have any questions at all?
I just have one for wastewater. So the truck that was on there and it said small truck, would that be something small like a Maverick or something like that? Cause I don't know if like an F-150 size, if the 50 grand would do it these days with the cost of vehicles.
That's exactly what we had in mind, Mayor Finn.
Okay. all
And
right,
then
very good.
outfitted with light bar and et cetera. Yep.
Okay, cool. All right, thank you.
No, if it's okay with council, what I'd like to do is just go ahead and open it up. So if you have a question, just stop and we'll, or go ahead and ask. Is that?
Perfect.
okay?
Yep,
I
thank
think it
you.
works better that way. Is that all right with you, Mayor?
Okay, and I'll just
Okay.
chime in. I'll call somebody's attention.
Okay,
Thank you.
perfect. Thank you. I think that's good.
Thank you, Thaxton.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Thaxton. Appreciate that.
Okay, so now for the hefty, we're going to move on to the general fund. And I'm going to start with a long-term fiscal forecast. And city staff work with GovInvest and HDL consultants on a long-term forecasting, and that forecast includes the following assumptions, which is fiscal year '25, full-year staffing at Fire Station 106, starting fiscal year '25, a slowdown of development, continuous pension 115 trust contributions, and that's in line with the pension funding policy that was adopted in this fiscal year. Debt service on a police station starting in fiscal year '28. As you will see later on in the slides, there is an enhancement for a new position request using SLESA funds. That position will be going to the general fund in fiscal year '27. And two new positions every year starting in fiscal year '28, and that's to keep up with demand and growth of the city. So this is the long-term fiscal forecast. As you can see, the orange line is your baseline. That would be if we held services at what they are currently. Your gray line is city services along with enhancement requests for this current fiscal year. And your yellow line includes a debt service payment for a new police station. The long-term fiscal forecast is a conservative model, and it's used to demonstrate the future needs of the city and the impacts with lower growth. The model was used to evaluate sustainability of the new enhancements, including capital projects. And the model provides for current service levels, and again, with the added enhancements and CIP requests. As you can see, the model shows that beginning in fiscal year 2030-31, with the debt service payments, the general fund will experience deficits. And at the city council meeting on May 7th, there will be a discussion item on revenue strategy. And this discussion will include ways to evaluate and implement strategies to increase revenues, which include tax compliance, monitoring, auditing strategies, strategic economic development, and a review of our current tax rates. Are there any questions on this slide before I move?
I have a question on the last one. So when we're talking about debt service for PD, is that assuming that we're going to go out to bond?
It is.
What's that?
It is. It's a debt service on a bond.
On a one that we haven't done anything on a bond yet, correct? And what's the
Correct.
timing on that? I mean, what do you, because if you can go back one screen, you're showing the debt service to start to, starting in 2028. So in order to get to that point, we're bonding, when are we bonding or approving the, go out to a bond?
Well, we need to do land acquisition first.
Okay.
And we're predicting that we should do that in the next 6 to 12 months.
Okay.
And then after that, we'll have to do, we already have a conceptual design, but we need to finish design and construction docs. So we're looking at roughly sometime late 26 to early 27.
Okay, and for bonding for that, we are going to go to the voters on that?
No. We can, that's a decision that council would have to make, but that's not what we're recommending right now.
Okay, so what are we recommending?
Going to a bond, similar to what we did with the wastewater treatment.
Okay. Okay, and then if you go to the next screen, I guess it's back on the last one, the staffing for the fire station. When's that happening?
I was told last week that the prediction to staff Station 106 is hopefully mid-June.
And when did we budget for 23, 24 for that? To
Mid-year.
Start paying? What?
Mid-year, January of this year, so there's some savings in this fiscal year.
Okay, and the longer it goes, the more savings we have for 24, 25? Or do we think it's going to get done before 24, 25?
I was told mid-June, so I'm hopeful that that's when we're going to be fully staffed, but I am anticipating July 1st.
Okay, thank you.
One thing to point out on this slide too, is you'll see in fiscal year '24, there's a deficit of 7.7 million. I'm going to get into that and what that is in the next slide for our fund balances, but that is showing a spend down of fund balance in the current fiscal year.
Can you go back one slide real quick?
Sure.
On the graph, orange line baseline is showing roughly in 28 where we're at, what, 65,000? Okay, never mind. I'm good. Thank you very much.
So a couple of questions here. Going back to the debt service of the PD, that would include structure and design, and the number that whatever you use to calculate what the debt service would be included those two, right? Structure and design.
Yeah, what we did is our municipal advisor ran kind of what a debt service schedule would look like based on a police station. And so he ran that debt service schedule. And what we're using that is just as basically a placeholder to be able to plan if we do decide to go out to bond for a police station, that's kind of, this is what it's going to look like. I would say at that point in time when it comes up, you'd want to definitely have your municipal advisor to review everything and look, and then give you their advice on structuring that debt service.
Now, the equipment or personnel that would be needed, is that separate? I mean, is that considered a part of this LTFF? Is like, okay, he's gonna need this and this and this, so that's gonna cost this.
It's not included in the debt service, but it is included in the forecast, in the model.
Right, that's what I'm asking for the forecast,
right.
okay. And going back to fire, so we had talked about a while back about a 5-year study on CAL FIRE and their expenses, and predicting going up a bit and so forth. Is that included in here as far as what we discussed at that point on the long-term fiscal forecast, or is this just based on what we're seeing now with no anticipation of an increase, or did we adjust a little bit in there?
Oh, we adjust, yeah, there's an adjust, there's some adjustment in there, and there's an assumptions that are used when
Okay.
you build the forecast.
Right.
And those assumptions are applied to kind of pick up like CPI adjustments, any type of like, contractual increases, utilities, things like that is applied within the model.
Perfect. Okay, all right, I'm good for now, thank you.
On your debt service assumptions, what amount are you looking to bond for? What amount did you use for that?
It was ran off of 50 million.
50 million? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, so this slide is fund balance and general fund as of June 30th, 2023, audited financials. And we will discuss fund balance, which are dollars that have been accumulated and saved over the years to provide financial buffers for cash flow, budget stabilization, recessionary downturns, emergency disasters, and risk mitigation and legal costs. The current City of Beaumont policy has a working cash flow requirement of 16% of the annual budget. And these funds are needed to continue operations with delay of tax receipts and grant reimbursements. Expenses occur more consistently than receipts of revenue, so the cash flow is used to continue payments as needed until revenues are received. City of Beaumont fund balance policy also requires a $5 million budget stabilization reserve, and this reserve is to mitigate the loss of revenue should there be an economic downturn. These dollars will help mitigate the loss of up to 7% of overall revenue, allowing time to prepare a plan of action. And this plan can include the use of Pension 115 funds to reimburse the city for pension costs, allowing to free up the budget of these costs and continue operations. An emergency disaster can result in disasters caused by human or nature, resulting in unexpected complications for the budget. And so the current policy has $1 million required reserves to address any type of situation like that. The current reserves also hold $6.3 million of self-insurance funds, and the city council approved a minimum balance in these funds of $2 million. The city council can choose to use any funds in this category, and that's to address operational deficiencies caused by recession emergency situations, or you can choose to hold them in there for any types of litigation or risk mitigation. Available reserves, and I've highlighted that in the yellow, are dollars that are available for city council to appropriate. And it is recommended that these funds are used for one-time costs or can be used if needed to offset operations for a planned period of time and overcoming downturns. They should not be used for ongoing costs with unspecified amount of time. And there have been some changes that we have made in this current fiscal year that I can address in the next slide. But before I do, are there any questions on this one? So in the current fiscal year, there were some adjustments that were made. We are spending down some fund balance, and those two adjustments were MOU lump sum bonus pay and a CIP amendment for Potrero. And so the remaining available balance for the general fund balance is $8.1 million.
What's the CIP amendment per trail? That's what we already approved earlier this year, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Do we have any questions? We're good. Okay, we're going to get to the general fund revenues. And revenues have increased from the fiscal year 24 amended revenue budget by $264,000 or less than 1%. And the categories decrease includes taxes, and that's due to lower growth estimates and property tax from fiscal year 24 estimates. Permits due to a slowdown of development, and transfers, which is due to CFD maintenance services and gas tax being used to fund the annual street maintenance CIP program. And in working with the CFD administration consultant and Public Works, we're using CFD dollars and gas tax to go towards the street program rather than general fund dollars for the backfill of the Measure A revenue loss. And the Measure A revenue loss is pursuant to WRCOG settlement agreement, which states that WRCOG will retain 60% of Measure A revenues until June 30 of 2039, or until they receive $9.4 million. And so when we were working with the CFD consultant, we put in what's less discretionary revenue funding for the street program, leaving more discretionary funds within the general fund. Significant increased revenues from the fiscal year 24 amended budget include miscellaneous revenues, which are investment earnings, and other financing sources, and that's due to the increased admin overhead from the wastewater fund. Do we have any questions on this?
Do you have a just a rough idea of the breakdown of the taxes basis, basically sales, property, and others?
Yeah, so the sales tax is majority of the revenue. It's at $29 million for fiscal year 25.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, it's 29 and 24, it goes to 28 and 25. There's a one-time audit that was done in fiscal year 24. So your estimated revenues for sales tax is actually higher than what your fiscal year 25 budget is, but that's because of one-time revenues that are coming in from that audit of sales tax on your business industry sector.
Okay.
I
And then
got
how
a-
much of
I've got
that's
a-
property tax? Sorry.
Go ahead, Lloyd.
How much of that was the property tax?
Their property tax revenues?
Yeah.
Well, let me grab that. Yeah, so your property tax revenues for the fiscal year '24 budget is 8.8 million, and for the fiscal year '25 budget, it is 8.3.
Okay.
Okay, Jennifer, I've got a question for you in reference to the WRCOG settlement. Is staff predicting that we'll time out at the 2039, or do you think that'll get paid off any sooner on that 9 point whatever million that was still owed?
Well, I haven't calculated that out yet. We've been going back and forth. We get these estimates from RCTC, and so we have been kind of working with them on getting our estimates. And I can bring that back to City Council at a later date with the possible timeframe of how long that will take based on continuing at the 60-40 split.
Okay, that'd be nice to know in the future. Thank you.
And for the last time we got the 60-40, what was our share of the 60 or 40?
For our current fiscal year '25 budget for Measure A revenue is $918,000.
So maybe $1 million a year, and we owe $9 million. So 9 years out would put it at 2020 or 2033, 34. Okay.
Wasn't that 918 though, our revenue?
That's our portion.
Right, so I think your question is the portion that went to WRCOG, right?
No, my question was sort of to answer Mayor Finn's question is, what's the time frame? It's going to be about 9 years at about $1 million a year, right?
But
Little over 9 years.
we're giving them the 60%, right? Or are they only getting the 40%?
Oh, that's true. They're getting the 60%.
No, they're getting the 60, so it's 2.2 million, I think, that we're giving annually. I mean, that was a quarter, right? Almost, or that was a half a year. What was the 918 for?
The 19 is for a fiscal year. That's
It'd
the
be
city's
one-
revenue
about
share for the
1.3.
fiscal year.
Okay.
So yeah, we should definitely be done in 9 years.
Okay, good to know. Thanks for the additional questions.
Okay, so overall, total revenues are 68.1 million for the general fund. Do we have any other questions on revenues, or would you like to move to expenses? Wait, did I skip a slide? Sorry. So this is our general fund proposed expenditures. As you'll see, total for fiscal year '25 proposed is 58.1 million. Personnel increase 313,000 from original budget, and that's primarily due to accounting for merit increases and retirement cash outs. Operating expenses increased 2.1 million, and that's the primary drivers of the increases for utilities with added new facilities, fleet costs, and contractual services. And the capital line, as you'll see, that's our transfer lines and decision points for the city council, and those are by enhancement requests from departments, which you'll see later on in the presentation. Each department will be requesting their enhancement requests.
Can you go back over personnel? What was the increase there?
It's merits and retirement cash outs. If you can see in that fiscal year '24 amended budget, that amount does include the one-time MOU lump sum payment.
Thank you.
Okay, and then, let's see. I think I skipped a slide. I'm going to go back here. We do have in your packets, this is the third year that we have done program budgeting. And program costs, they include positions, FTEs that have been identified and rolled up to respective department budgets. And you have program sheets that are as a part of your attachments. And those are all the program costs broken out for you. And this is the third year of developing a program budget using GFOA and CSMFO best budgeting practices. Sorry about that. Okay, so overall, the overview for general fund.
I'm sorry, I need to jump back.
Sure.
I found the slide without having to ask you, but now I need to ask you to go back to the one where you're breaking out the original amended and proposed expenditures. So the original budget was 63 million, and the amended budget is 72 million. Where did that 9 million come from? All from transfers?
Yeah, if you look in transfers, that's a lot of the CIP adjustments, and what we talked about in spending down that fund balance is included in there. So the amended budget, part of it is from your MOU lump sum payment. Portion of it is for the programming to Potrero. And there were some other amendments that were made throughout the year.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so for overview, the proposed revenues is 68.1 million. Expenses are at 58.1 million, and that leaves an unprogrammed balance of 10 million. And I will note that that does not include any of the enhancement requests, which you're going to be hearing in the next couple of slides. So general fund enhancement requests total 2.1 million, and that includes proposed 7.5 new full-time equivalent positions with 10 part-time seasonal positions. And the request will be presented in the next slides by each department, and not all departments have a request, so you will only be hearing from the departments that do. And before I pass it off to Police Chief, is there any questions?
Is there strategic in having him go first?
Yes.
Okay,
Largest.
got it.
Right.
That's what? No hats? No keychains?
Nothing. Nothing. No, I know.
Those were last time, yeah.
I know. Well, evening, Mayor and Council. So before you, I'll be presenting the enhancement request for the police department. And I'll be referring to our org chart periodically, and so I believe you have a copy of that handy at the dais. And so I'd like to begin with the traffic sergeant position. Currently, our cop sergeant, the cops being the community-oriented policing and problem-solving sergeant, has 10 direct reports. And of those reports, they have very serious and extensive duties ranging from 12 to 13 different campuses with our 3 SROs, our behavioral health, our homeless outreach, our business liaison, 4 motors, and we'd like, as we work through this, also assign some commercial enforcement programming to that. But in doing that, that's too large of a span of control for those duties. And so we're proposing to separate the duties from the cop sergeant and add a traffic sergeant. And this would allow that sergeant to focus on our traffic needs, build our commercial enforcement team, work with the California Office of Traffic Safety on grants, conduct our DUI checkpoints, plan parade routes, motoring safety, and those types of functions. And then each of those sergeants would have roughly 6 direct reports, and we believe that's an appropriate span of control for that level of work. We'd also like another patrol corporal. We have 6 patrol teams. One of them is rather corporal. The corporal provides field supervision, can serve as an FTO, relieves the sergeant so the sergeant can focus on audit of our customer service delivery models, handle front counter complaints, vehicle releases, and other emergencies that each watch commander would handle as they come up on a patrol shift. And I'll pause there for a moment and ask if there's any questions with those 2 enhancements.
Chief, quick question, just to help with the public. FTO means field training officer, is that correct?
That's correct, field training
Okay.
officer.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir. So the commercial enforcement officer, we've heard from the public, we've heard from council. We have logistics centers here, we have them coming, we work with Public Works, we want to have established truck routes, we want to enforce those. And that takes a very special and specific training, special equipment. And so we want to take an existing officer position. So a lot of it's kind of has to happen in concert. So we add the traffic sergeant that can ride a motor. That frees up a motor position to move into commercial enforcement, but you'd still have the 4 motors. Then we would take some of our SLESA funds and hire another officer, and so we could have 6 or 7 day week coverage of commercial traffic enforcement. And the SLESA is our Supplemental Law Enforcement Services account. It is COPS funding. The city receives $100,000 a year. It's based on population. And so the least we would get is 100,000. If we ever grow beyond that, it matches the population. But we've had some of this money saved up, and we'd like to spend it down, and we think this is the most appropriate program for that.
SLESA funds an annual, doesn't go away?
Doesn't go away, it's by legislature.
Okay.
If it was to go away, we would still keep what we have, we would spend that down, and then this position's proposed to be adopted into the general fund in 2027 regardless. But we do count on that money coming annually.
Thank you.
How much is it annually?
$100,000.
Okay.
Then following that, we would need a special truck. You see them on a highway with the highway patrol, the ones that do the commercial enforcement. Ours would be a little more elaborate because our officers, as you know, they don't ever just do one job. They do many jobs. And so they have to respond to many different calls for service. But it would be similar to that with the camper shell, the portable scales, all the different equipment that they need to properly enforce these commercial vehicle codes. The great thing about the citations is, a speeding ticket, a stop sign ticket, most of that revenue goes to the state of California, and the city sees very little. But with commercial enforcement, those fines, the majority have come to the city because there's a direct correlation on the impacts of our roadways. And so we can see an offset of our operating costs through citation fines. Again, if we won't need this vehicle if we don't have the commercial enforcement officer approved, so it's to a degree a package request. And I could pause there if there's any questions.
Chief, I've got a couple for you. Well, one a comment and one question.
Okay.
One, I appreciate the commercial enforcement, especially with all the truck issues that we have. And it was even nice too. I had our CHP commander out of the Banning way station reach out for what our concerns are. So I appreciate that, and I think that's a good idea. I do have a question though in reference to the suppressors for the 6-hour rifles.
Yes.
Can you explain that? I know there's different types. There's flash suppressors, there's silencers. Can you just give a brief explanation on that?
Absolutely. Would you like that now or as I move down the list?
As you move down the list, I thought with you jumping screens that you were moving on to something else. So you can explain that later. Thanks.
You're welcome. And so next would be, if I'm in the right order here, it's got me thinking now. Yeah. Okay, so yes, the next item is the mobile computers and printers for the Detective Bureau. 4 computers, 2 printers. Oftentimes when our detectives roll out, one's at the jail, one's at the hospital, one's at the crime scene, or they're with the victim witness, so we need to be more mobile, not have our detectives return to the station each time they need to write a search warrant or affidavit. And so they need to be able to write in the field, print in the field, and that's why we're requesting that. The Turbo Data ticket writers have proven to be a very useful tool, not just in relieving staff time and the officers. As you know, there's a strip that's been on the back of our driver's license for many years now, and people were waiting for the technology. The technology's been here where the officers can swipe the strip, it auto-populates. We've actually seen, since we've adopted the ticket writers, that ticket writing has increased exponentially because there's an ease behind it. And we use it for our CVPs, we'll use it for our handicap enforcement, certain parking tickets, our officers, our motors, animal control. There's a collections aspect to it. And just in offsetting the fees of the ticket writers. So once we paid the fees, the revenue that's come to the city is about 150,000. And that does not count for the savings of the staff time, because now my support services specialists, my records folks are not handling the citation. It's automated. And so, and it actually reduces site corrections because we've auto-populated the fields. So because in the courts, if you write a large A instead of a small a, it'll be returned to be corrected in that staff time. And so it's fixed that. And then we'll move to suppressors. And so in Hollywood, of course, Hollywood has done a great job influencing us, and we believe that silencers are used for Hitman and different movies like that. But in reality, a silencer and a suppressor is the same thing. But the suppressors do three things, most notably. One, it enhances our officer safety due to noise reduction. So picture that we have an active shooter situation, and of course, we pray we never do, but it's in an area with many classrooms and concrete buildings. One shot creates an echo, a reverb, and we want to reduce that. We want to know where the shots are being fired from. We don't want to be confused with ours. It reduces risk of hearing loss over time from training use, so our officers train how they will perform in the field. So the suppressor will always be on the rifle. It reduces workers' comp claims and liability. We're asking for about, give or take $70,000. We surveyed a police department that paid out about that much for a hearing loss claim. And so we don't, and plus, take out the workers' comp side. We don't want our officers to suffer long-term damage, regardless of a claim or not. But also the blowback of the lead, it pushes the lead forward. And so our city manager and I, we went out and I wanted to see it myself, right? I'm thinking, I'm not going to ask for silencers publicly. And they said, no, that's not what they are. So I took the lesson myself so I could explain it well. And you can feel the difference between shooting a rifle without a suppressor and one without, and you can just feel it. Or if your partner was about 10 feet in front of you and fired it, you could feel the hit in your own chest. We want to reduce that, especially when you think about our range masters and our armors that are out there with every qualification. They're taking the hit on every shot of the blowback and the noise and the lead. So we don't want them breathing that lead. We want to push it forward. You still hear it. It just changes the way that the sound is moved and delivered. But you still hear it. It wouldn't be like a Hollywood movie. All right. And the reason for the Sig Sauer selection is we've been moving to a Sig Sauer model rifle. And the way that the suppressor fits, it's a click and lock, where other brands are threaded. They're very fine threads. It's going to be very easy to misthread it and then have to send it in to be repaired, and then the officer would be down a suppressor. And we don't want to pay the repair, so it's just really a click and go type feature because it's made to fit onto the SIG. Mayor Finn, did that answer those questions?
Yes, that was very well done. I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. And any questions on those requests?
Yeah, Chief, you mentioned in regards to commercial enforcement officer, vehicle, is that included? Or is the vehicle coming? Or if we get it approved, then you'll have to put it in?
I'll have to order the commercial enforcement vehicle. I'll cover that with state asset forfeiture funds.
It's part of the request.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Along with the equipment's all included and everything, correct? Okay.
Correct. We'll get that, yeah,
Okay.
under the
Thanks,
150,000.
Chief.
Yes, sir.
And is it part of our policy, anytime there's a computer and stuff, it just goes under IT budget, no matter where it goes? I assume so, okay. Yeah. Okay, that's all.
Have we tested mobile printers in the field by chance? Years ago, there used to be an issue with the mobile printers. Either you left, the printer's paper would never work very well, or.
Yeah, I used one when I was a detective, and you're right. Obviously, technology then is not what it is now. But absolutely, because what we've found is our counterparts with the gang task force or some of our different task forces all have them.
Okay.
Because they can't return to the station either, right? A lot of our work is in the field, and it's just better to stay in the field when you can.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you, Chief.
you're welcome. And so I'll move to flock cameras. I apologize. So we have a number of flock cameras throughout the city. In fact, yesterday it located a stolen vehicle. RSO's aviation unit just happened to be in the air. The vehicle fled. We felt that the circumstances didn't warrant a pursuit when the driving during the daytime hours exceeded our threshold for acceptability, and the airship just carried on with the pursuit down the freeway. But we've solved many of crime with the flock cameras. We can enter a vehicle that we're looking for, whether it be catalytic converter thefts, mail theft, if we can get a license plate, if we can get a temporary plate, put it in, and then these cameras, the system communicates with San Jacinto, Radlin, San Bernardino, Newport Beach, whoever's on the flock. But what we're hoping to do is add more cameras, because I want to cover our ingress and egress into the city from all of our neighboring jurisdictions, and then any of our areas that have a hot spot, right? So when I think of perhaps Oak Valley and Oak View with convenience stores, gas stations, they're open 24/7. We want to be able to get on those if there's a robbery or there's some sort of a crime, get the plate and get going on it really quick. With that, I'm going to move into police support, unless there's questions on the flock cameras.
We're good, Chief.
Okay. So critical position, as you know, I've been really focusing the last several years since we've got our patrol staffing to appropriate levels, is getting our support services staffing corrected and our leadership in place, because there's a extensive, highly sensitive work that is conducted in records, whether it's Department of Justice audits, reporting our crime stats to the FBI, auditing every license plate we run, every firearm we run. We get audited through many sources. And that work has to be conducted at the appropriate level, and that's at a supervisor. Currently, we have one support services supervisor who oversees 17 direct reports, right? That's 10.5 dispatchers and our support services folks, property and evidence. And that's not an appropriate span of control for that type of work. And so we think by bifurcating dispatch from support services, property and evidence, animal control, then we could have the appropriate level of supervision, the appropriate level of reporting to the Department of Justice and the federal DOJ on our crime stats and other reports. And the two supervisors would report to the police services manager. And we have leads in dispatch. And so now we have an appropriate level, and it looks like the structure of our sworn side, which is a sergeant, corporals, and so forth and so on. And I'd like to pause there, definitely, and ask if there's questions on support services supervisor.
Just kind of a nuance, but I don't know, if I was looking at it, I would think you would want the name, not the new position, but the other one as dispatch supervisor, but.
Right. Well, the great thing is, right now, we have the job title of support services supervisor and the job description approved. And so what I'm going to be working with Post, and they're going to analyze our support services free of charge. And they'll be able to say, hey, this is the appropriate amount in each of your units, and this is proper based on best practices and those types of things. And then we'll work, if we find out that one should be a record supervisor or a dispatch supervisor, then I'll work with our admin services manager and our city manager to see if that's appropriate. Okay. And then the dispatch on-call, we have different police officer units on-call. Dispatch, as you know, is a critical function, and they work rotating shifts, and so because the night shift can't cover the day shift because they work the 12s, and they can't, of course, circle back and do a 24. And the other end of the week, it would be helpful to just have an on-call fund to say, hey, I will be on call if anybody's sick. You know, they work in a tight unit, they all have kids at home, and those kids bring stuff home, they call in sick, of course, as anybody would have to from time to time. But this way we know we're not just going down a phone tree just trying to call people in the blind, hoping somebody answers. We'll know, hey, you said you'd be on call, you received the POA allotted amount for that, come in. And it just takes some pressure off as the watch commander is dealing with so many things, let's say on a Friday night or Saturday night, just knowing, hey, this dispatcher's on call, I'm calling one person and they're coming in because they agreed to it, right, with standby pay. That's what that request is for. And then the dispatch console, I know many of you have toured the police department, you've seen our dispatch center. I often compare it to an Apache helicopter cockpit. There's buttons and all kinds of screens and things going on in there. But with that, we have 3 stations that run. We already have the space for the 4th, but it's not, we need to now put in the brains of the unit, because when we have our overlap shift, we'll have 3 dispatchers running, but sometimes these consoles have to be upgraded, the equipment's upgraded. We have the Cherry Festival, we have 4th of July, we have many different like DUI checkpoints. We staff extra dispatchers because we're running, you know, hundreds of people through a checkpoint, and we cannot overload the ones that are also covering our emergency services. So this 4th would allow us to utilize it in case of emergency, and then also for special events and functions. With that, questions in our support services? And then lastly, going back, any question that may have come to mind on any enhancement I've proposed this evening? Okay.
They were good, Chief.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, hello, me again. So, Finance is requesting tax and fee administration services. And so as a part of the city's adopted strategic plan, there is an item for revenue strategy. And again, I kind of mentioned this earlier, but the revenue strategy will be discussed at the May 7th council meeting. But a part of that strategy is for discovery and recovery of unrecovered revenue through non-compliance. And the City of Beaumont's financial policies also state that revenue collection efforts that produce positive net income for the city service delivery will be the highest budget priority. Implementing measures linked to effectiveness, such as enhancing collections and audit processes for current taxes, can recur revenues the city is losing through miscalculations or failure to report in tax areas not already in this type of program. And this includes utility users tax, franchise fees, transient occupancy tax, and business license. And the program is designed to assist the city in locating tax and licensing revenue that it may not be receiving from all local businesses. And this program provides detection, documentation, and correction of deficiencies, producing new revenue, as well as assist in forecasting and budget development. And staff have obtained quotes from multiple agencies, which most work on a contingency of 35 to 45% of recovered revenues. But the quote used for purposes for this is a fixed fee amount. And in discussions with some other cities, businesses are more comfortable using agencies at a fixed fee amount than someone who works off of contingency fee. And so with that, I'm available for any questions that you have.
They were good. That's it for finance?
Chief's favorite part when I pulled down the mic. I was like, come on. All right, administration. The city manager's administrative department has two enhancement requests. The first is a principal management analyst position. This would be a high-level professional position that reports directly to the city manager's office to provide high-level administrative support, assist in financial and operational analysis, handle various reporting, budgeting, special projects, development, implementation of goals, objectives, policies. We started reviewing the organization and found there were a lot of analyst levels except for that department in particular. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions about the position.
Will there be any savings with this position from current contracts that are being utilized?
From current,
Like, any of our, consultants?
no, this is just an added staff support for the city manager, as well as our PIO, our deputy city manager. It's a analytical layer that will help with research. Right now, what's happening is from the city manager, a lot of what needs to be done is passed on to the department heads, which is just adding to their workload. So it would give me that level of,
And we do have it singled out on the tiny, tiny little org chart in a green box under the city manager. I apologize. In our efforts to lean out the organization, we made it really hard to read on paper. With only 3 divisions, it's a little easier.
Carrie, I've got a quick question.
Yes,
So any salary amounts that we're saying, any costs on the associated, that's salary plus bonus, or plus,
absolutely.
benefits, correct?
Yes, that is fully
Okay.
burdened, correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, no other questions. I'll move on. The second enhancement in the administrative department is to enhance our business licensing module. The current module is probably 15-plus years old, I'm guessing. I know it predates me over here. It doesn't allow for online applications, renewals, or payments, one of the complaints we get most from the businesses. The new options are mostly cloud-based. They're more robust. They ensure proper licensing, proper classifications. New features include communication, outreach, and analysis and invoicing to the businesses. It does offer additional compliance and auditing options. As Jennifer just pointed out, the solution finance is looking at is in more totality, and it's a flat fee. A lot of these offer it, but it's a 45% contingency fee. So the goal would be to try to enhance our business licensing revenue to pay for this, but through her auditing module first. If that does not work, then we would have this as a backup through a contingency if needed, if it wasn't successful.
In that module, does it do automatic renewals?
Yes.
So if, let's just say, how do you prevent, on these automatic renewals would be the only concern I would have is if a business is no longer functioning?
Correct.
Is there a way that we can?
That's why there's some compliance components of this and
Okay.
outreach and education and more reporting options, comparing and contrasting last year's revenues to this year's, or, the previous 2 years, to see if their revenue is going up or down, that sort of thing, to help us point out those anomalies and reach back out to them and help them understand gross receipts. And through John's office, we've prepared nice letters to send businesses to make sure they understand it properly. So this will assist in kind of integrate that all into one solution online, all the forms, everything.
That's great. Thank you very much, Carrie.
All right.
Good.
Now we have Jamie, correct? Nope, I couldn't remember if we were going to IT or staying here. So, two more for me here. I've got the classification and compensation study, our favorite. Current contracts expire in June of 2026, so I would like to anticipate going to RFP at the end of this year and hopefully starting the work in spring of '25 to allow for adequate time for negotiations prior to those contracts expiring. Any questions on that?
Are we on the 5th year?
We're
third
currently
year?
in 4.
4, so
Yeah,
that'll be
after
the
July
fifth.
we'll be in 5, and then we expired June 30 of 2026.
And we're doing our comps every 5.
We want, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. So 2025, we'll start it again.
We're good.
All right. Last but not least, I have a NeoGov onboarding module I'd like to utilize to enhance our onboarding process. NeoGov currently is our platform for job postings, recruitments, performance evaluations, our training and safety library. The new onboarding module will automate and accelerate the process, making new hire forms available for candidates before they come aboard. What I really liked about it is it really enforces the job duties, the requirements, and the expectations for the employee. It kind of builds that into it. You can add a mentorship program through it. It automates check-ins, checkbacks with the brand new employees to drive employee engagement, see how they're doing, how their feedback is. And then it also links to the training module to ensure that all the mandatory training for position A is linked to that classification. So it links it all together so that the day they start, they've got a whole library full of mandatory classes they've got to take within their first 30 days or whatever we assign, that sort of platform. And it's fairly inexpensive. So
Like that. We're good.
now I'll let you do it. Come on up.
Thank you, Carrie. Oh, must have hit it with my paper. There we go. Tonight, we bring you one enhancement from the IT department. It is a managed detect response service. What a managed detect response is, it's a service that is going to provide a 24-hour, 7-day monitoring service from a third-party cybersecurity company that's going to help us be able to monitor our infrastructure and our end-user devices. If we are away on holiday, and the beauty behind that is that if we are away or we're not in, they'll be able to mitigate any type of problems that if we have a threat actor who gets into our network, they can go ahead and mitigate that, stop it from whatever they're doing at the time, and be able to quarantine it from continuing on. Most or some other different managed detect responses will only just kind of put it in a quarantine area. Well, the solution that we're looking for is a company that's going to come in and actually handle that problem while we're away. Because we don't have a 24-hour service IT department, this will go ahead and handle those parts while we are away. Ultimately, if we didn't have this solution, again, we're looking at potential threats, some ransomware that could happen, some viruses that could potentially take our data, stuff like that. And our goal is to prevent that happen. This is just another added security layer to our infrastructure, and be able to mitigate those while we're away. Moving on to capital improvement plan. I've kind of put it in the order of priority, which I felt, so it's going to be a little bit different. We're going to start with the integrated alarm system. Currently, the City of Beaumont's alarm system is pretty old. We're talking probably from the 1980s type system. So the technology that we're currently using is very antiquated. We have very limited resources when it comes to if we have anything that breaks, access controls, anything of those sorts, they're hard to find. And if we do find them, it's very expensive to purchase those products. If we upgrade to a newer integrated alarm system, we're getting better and newer technology that uses current technology. On top of that, we are now able to remotely lock doors, set up users. Right now, we have to go to each keypad and add in a user, which is limited to how many users we can have on the system at a time. So we're going in and having to delete users that are no longer with the city, as well as input new users with the new technology. Today, we just do that either from our computer or even from our own handheld. Security is key. We want to provide as the utmost physical security here so that nobody's able to come and steal our devices, our assets, and especially our data. Our goal ultimately is to centralize a one-type system that will be for all the buildings that we are occupying at this time. So my goal is to revamp all the keypads to more of a badge reader system. So now there are better auditing tools that allow us to see who's come in and out of each building, each gate. That is my goal currently, to get us upgraded to the latest and newest technology with that. Second item in my capital improvement is a new camera system. While we do have camera systems here, my goal is to, again, centralize and provide better technology that is being used today to provide better security measures. Currently, we have some cameras, but we don't have anything that actually monitors the exterior of the buildings. Right now, we have stuff interior of the common areas, which has been useful, but ultimately, overall, I want to be able to do internal, external, and be able to have that data and that information that'll allow us to be able to see if anything's going on at the time. Right now, I'm trying to work to get a centralized camera system that PD is currently using, where we have now one camera system that PD can monitor at the same time while IT has access as well. And lastly is IT is wanting a new vehicle. Currently, we only have one vehicle at this time. We are utilizing it a lot. We have, obviously, the city has grown with new buildings that the staff has occupied, and now my staff is having to go from place to place and physically touch some of these devices or whatever when a help desk ticket comes in. Unfortunately, because there's only one vehicle, my staff has to wait till that vehicle comes back to be able to respond to another off-site help desk ticket. Just so you know, and just kind of give you guys some information, the different buildings that we currently travel to is the police department, the Chatney Recreational Center, the transit yard off California Street, the police department's annex building, wastewater treatment plant, and public works building off of 4th Street. So of those 6 buildings, it's a little challenging for us to be able to get from place to place. So overall, to give you some statistical data, from the calendar year of 2023, the IT department has responded to 1,158 help desk tickets in 1 year. Of those 1,158 help desk tickets, 758 of those tickets, my staff had to physically respond to off-site outside of the City Hall campus. So roughly half of our tickets are outside of our campus here, and we just try to make do currently with what we have and respond to those tickets as fast as we can. This will definitely help our response times and our resolution times. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Do you think the addition of the upgraded alarm system will minimize the amount of travel you're doing? Is that what a lot of it is, programming in the keypads, adding new users, or?
It'll be one extra less step that we have to worry about when it comes to setting up users, especially when we have new employees or if an employee retires, we can ultimately do it from our desks or remotely from our phones. Any other questions?
Go ahead, Mayor. Is that Mayor?
No, I don't think so.
No?
I think you
Oh,
already did.
2 things. One, so the cameras for the memorial out there separate from these cameras, right? Is that how the budget
Correct.
is out? Okay. And did you say that for the integrated alarm system, that you were planning to expand it to some of those buildings you listed? Or that was a future goal?
Well, yes, my goal is to try to tackle as much as we can with the allotted amount that we have, that we've asked for.
Probably starting with City Hall, I'm assuming.
Yes, of
Right.
course. We would start here first and then slowly branch out to the other buildings, just depending on, where we want to place them and put them at.
And that would be both for the alarm and the camera goal?
Correct.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
We're good.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Are you expecting that we're gonna have a break before the end of the workshop?
If you would like, we can do that, sure.
Yeah, I'd like to take one now if we could.
Did everybody go with that?
You gotta get me a cup of coffee, just putting me to sleep, so.
Okay, we'll take a coffee break, Dave.
Yeah.
We're gonna take a break, Mayor.
Okay,
5 minutes or 10 minutes?
5's good with me. Okay, thanks.
Caffeine break.
All right.
excuse me. We'll go ahead and pick up again. We're all good? All right. We have, we just finished information technology. Next up will be Mr. Doug Story with Park and Recreation. And that's all the time we have for Doug Story.
All right, no problem. I concede the rest of my time. That sounds like an approval to me, so I'll just go on right ahead, so not a problem. Council, good evening. As we continue through our enhancements, I'd like to draw your attention to our Parks and Recreation. The first enhancement that we have here is a reclassification of a current position. This is to reclassify one of our CSC positions to a recreation coordinator position. We feel that this is needed as our department continues to grow and the responsibilities of our full-time staff begin to change. We would like to add to the responsibilities and add to the oversight that some of our staff have. And in order to do that, we feel that a reclassification would be necessary. The next two positions, the next two sets of enhancements that we have are in relation to an item.
Can I make a point of clarification?
Oh, sure.
Really quick? So we have an existing vacancy in the recreation coordinator, so a reclassification is not going to be necessary. What we're going to do is eliminate a customer service coordinator and add a recreation
Got
coordinator.
it. That's right. Yes. Say that again into the mic. Okay. I will say it into the mic. Correct. Yes. We did receive a personnel update with one of our staff members, and so she is going to be retiring in just a couple of weeks here. And with that move, we are going to eliminate the CSC position, and then we will reclassify. We will have that as a. I won't say the reclassify word. Got it. We will fill that position now that it's becoming vacant in a week and a half.
Okay.
And the other positions that we have in our enhancement are associated with an item that's going to be coming before council on May 7th, but it's in regards to an aquatics program that we are starting in partnership with the school district and working on offering some swim lessons for our community. So it is going to be a brief seasonal program that we'll offer over the summer when the pool is open and available and school is closed. But in order to do that, we want to make sure that we have funding for this next fiscal year as well. In our last enhancement we had last year, we put some money in here for some seed money for us to start this program, and we're going to be using that money this year. But this is for some ongoing costs for the personnel in next year's budget. After that, we will have some of the operating costs for the aquatics program that we'll need to cover. We are working, and we'll talk about this more in the council meeting, but some of the fees for rental of the facility is going to be waived, but there are some costs that we're going to need to begin to program for in order to conduct the program for the aquatics. We're also looking at expanding some of the things that we offer for our 4th of July celebration, our Freedom Festival. This is another enhancement, and so along with our fireworks extravaganza that we will have on July 4th, we're also adding a drone show, which will be a new opportunity for us this year. So that'll be a real fun opportunity for our community to see, something that we're excited to offer, that we've seen some of our neighboring municipalities do for different celebrations, and so it's been with new technology and new things to offer, it's a fun thing to celebrate on that 4th of July. Also, in terms of our summer programming, another enhancement we're asking for is the concerts. So we're adding 2 additional concerts, and this is in conjunction with the programming that's going to be happening in downtown as we offer our Beaumont Summer Nights program. In conjunction with that, we will also be having summer concerts. And when we do that, we're going to be having concerts in the month of June when we start the Thursday nights. We're going to start those in June, and then the 4 Thursdays in July as well, so a total of 7 concerts. So we're adding a couple of extra concerts to our normal summer concert series, so that is a new addition for us. The last and final enhancement that you'll see on your list is the DECRA lights. And DECRA lights, if you'll remember, in Christmas and our holiday season. We did some special decorations here at City Hall, the police station, the fire station, the CRC. We're going to continue that decorating. We also saw the poles on Palm Avenue get decorated as well. We're going to continue that, and we're going to focus this next year on 6th Street and Beaumont Avenue, working on some of the new light poles and the existing poles that are in there, and just bringing some fun festive stuff to downtown in the Christmas time. So with those enhancements, you'll see the updated organization chart. If you guys have any questions in regards to the request for enhancements in 1550 and Parks and Recreation, I can take those now.
Quick question for you, Doug.
Yes, sir.
So the lifeguards are in association with the program that we're starting up?
Correct.
Because I know the district still has programs going there throughout the summer as well.
Correct. And we will, in the MOU that we'll talk about on the 7th, we've been meeting with the district to balance what that is. You're right, there's boys water polo, there's girls water polo. One of the other local high schools is losing their pool, and so they're doing practices there as well. And so it's a lot of juggling, but we have some time slots that we're going to be able to use to offer the swim lesson program.
And as far as the pool manager, that's a part of that as well?
Correct. So then we'll have someone that'll oversee the lifeguards and the water safety instructors.
Okay.
As part of that program.
Very well.
And those will be a part-time, the pool manager position will also be a part-time seasonal position.
Okay. Thank you.
Good. Looks like we're good, sir.
Okay. As far as capital improvements for Parks and Recreation, the one thing that we have on our list is a Parks and Recreation cargo van. This is a Ford Transit cargo van that's going to offer us about 280 cubic feet for us to store items that we use for our pop-ups that we send and do programming throughout the community in different parks. This is an opportunity for us to transport easy-ups and our 6-foot tables and our sports equipment and storage totes and all those things that we bring to the different pop-ups. So pop-ups is one of our regular offered programs throughout the summer that meets at various parks on Tuesdays, and then we also do Fridays at the CRC. We also do different pop-ups in the park. If you remember our Gov in the Park days that we ran last fall and summer, those are similar times where we would have that vehicle available for those, and then also anything we would need for special events would be an opportunity for our staff to not have to use some of our big operational large trucks to transport that equipment.
I thought it might be to transport council members, but
You are welcome to ride in any of our vehicles. If you need a ride, just
Or what
call us
about
up.
Rocky, right?
Yeah. We can add Ubering to our department's list of responsibilities. Christina would love that. As we continue through some of our enhancements, moving into our building maintenance department, the request we have is for a new position for an additional building grounds maintenance worker. The emphasis and reasoning behind this additional position is to accommodate the increase in extra responsibilities that we've had when it comes to custodial work and building maintenance. The city has grown this last year in the amount of responsibility that we have for custodial services. So we've added, for the 4th Street Public Works Building. We have the new East Wing here at the City Hall, the California building that we just purchased this last year. And then we've also increased the frequency of what we're servicing, buildings that operate 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And so our custodial crew is working hard every day. We service 62 toilets a day, 65 sinks, 18 urinals that get cleaned every single day. And as we expand services and we expand office space and we are doing more, we're finding the need to add an additional individual to do that. We're also looking at ways that we can properly service all the different events and different meetings that we have. And so perhaps having custodial staff that stay later into the evenings, have a different working time so that we can offer a fresh clean or some turnover of services prior to some of our later evening meetings that start. Because right now my team starts at 5 a.m. to get the offices ready, but that means they're leaving earlier. And if we have meetings like today at 5, they've been gone for a while. And so we have to bring other on-call people in to do different things and whatnot. And so this is to help accommodate that growth that we've seen in our building maintenance needs. You can
Doug,
see,
are
I'm sorry, go
the-
ahead.
Just real quickly, are those fully encumbered numbers when it comes to the staff? They are.
Yes.
I remember that. Okay. Thanks. Fully loaded,
Yeah.
yeah.
Burdened, right? Fully burdened.
They're fully loaded as well as we budget at the highest because we don't know the person that's filling the position, single, family, et cetera.
Okay.
So in our org chart, you can see the building grounds maintenance worker being added underneath the lead building grounds maintenance worker for facilities in the org chart. Any questions for 6,000 and the enhancement for that department? Division.
We're good.
Moving
Sir?
on. So as we go to our Parks and Grounds maintenance, our 60/50, the enhancement is adding the current breakdown for management analyst is he's currently paid 50% out of my budget, and I share him with our transit department. And so we are requesting that we move from 50% to 100% out of my department with all of the contracts and different purchasing and invoicing and things that our department produces through building maintenance and grounds maintenance. We feel that there's a need and support for a full-time management analyst. We're also requesting some additional equipment that can assist in some projects. One of ours is a trencher that we currently rent when we need to do minor irrigation repair, when we need to dig new irrigation lines or reconfigure park irrigation. This is something that we currently would rent, and so we're looking at, as our irrigation crew continues to do this work, it's more cost effective for us to purchase this item rather than rent it. And also a message board, which we continue to use with other departments in conjunction with street closures and traffic control. And then the CIP for our 60/50 for our grounds department is, the first item is the citywide backflow security improvements. Right now, the city, we currently have about 183 backflows that we have that are servicing our maintenance areas. And in this last year, we have seen over 20 of them stolen. And so we are systematically going through and placing cages and making it very difficult and a deterrent for anyone to take those from us. And so this is an ongoing program that we're going to do to just enhance security for these backflows that we have. The tow behind mower is just an additional item that we would like to have as we service large playing fields. So this would primarily be used at the sports park and some of our large playing fields like Fallen Heroes and Stetson. That just helps enhance the turf, different type of mowing pattern so that we can have a nice playable surface. And then the last and final CIP item is the mini excavator, and this is for some of our more major irrigation projects that we have. When our guys have to replace a valve, sometimes our main lines are 4 feet deep. So right now we're hand digging those, and so this is a work smarter, not harder opportunity for us. And so we want to have a mini excavator that can help us in digging those out. And I think that would conclude our enhancements and CIPs for community services. If you have any other questions, would love to answer them at this time.
Doug, when you talk about the tow behind mower, and then we're also looking at synthetic grass installation, do we need a piece of equipment to do the little rubber beads, smooth those out, or?
Correct, yes. And so as part of the project budget, there are a couple of maintenance that are these special broom systems.
Right.
Basically that kind of move that infill.
We included those?
Yes, we did include those in the project. So that's coming out of the project.
Perfect. Good? We're good, Doug.
So the only request out of community development this fiscal year is for a new position, a senior planner. This position would assist the planning manager with the volume of current and forthcoming high-level projects that we have. The assistant planners are doing great on the day-to-day current planning, but there's still a substantial learning curve in their training that's ongoing before they're able to handle some of the scale of projects that we have going on right now. In the first 4 months of the year, we've received 50 applications through planning. And that does not count the significant amount of projects that carry over from year to year. This position would also assist in the succession planning efforts within the department. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Looks like we're good.
Thank you.
Good evening. Public Works, the Street Maintenance Division is requesting 3 enhancements. One is a Vector rental. Last year in our CIP, we included a Vector rental purchase. However, after doing some analysis, it's more cost effective to rent than it would be to purchase that outright. So we are bringing a closure of that CIP from last year, and we are requesting an enhancement to rent it for 3 months out of the year for a significantly cheaper. The second, really the second and the third are traffic control for our guys out in the street. One is a message board, which allows us to pre-program messages for events, for traffic control, really anything. And the other is a message board, an arrow board, which is a arrow board.
It's high tech, Robert,
Like
thank
go
you.
left,
Yeah.
go right. Arrow.
Arrow board.
Is there any questions on the enhancements?
2 questions here. One, the message board is addition to the other message board, right? So we'll have 2 in addition to whatever we have now. Do we have any now?
It is. We are always borrowing them from different departments. So wastewater, I believe, has, or PD has one. So there really is a need for multiple message boards.
And remind me again on the Vector, you said that we were gonna purchase one, and then we decided to rent instead?
That is correct. So on May
Okay.
7th, we have a CIP amendment that'll terminate that previous CIP project.
Okay, that's my question on here, is I thought we owned one.
Yeah, that's
and
what I
didn't
thought.
We
know
do,
what
I'm
was
sorry, I misunderstood you. We do own one.
Oh, so we do have
In
one.
fact, wastewater owns a large one.
Right.
Public Works owns like a 1980 yellow version that's inadequate for the storm drain system, the larger pipe.
Okay, so instead of buying another one, we're gonna rent one for
Right.
you and keep the new one of what we have. Okay. Yeah, well, that's why I got them moved up, so I've seen factors. Anyway, okay, I'm good.
So you talked about the Vector rental 3 months out of the year? Is that-
Yeah, so Public Works would only need a Vector truck to maintain the storm drain system. And our current production rate requires about 2.5 months to
Okay,
clean those
perfect.
facilities.
And you're gonna rent that from Thaxton?
We are. Feel free to half that rental then.
Okay, thank you.
So the CIP amendment that was a purchase moving to a rental, what was the amount of the purchase?
400,000.
I think you're the only department who's saving us money tonight.
I'll have to make a note of that.
Well,
You flip, yeah.
that concludes our presentation.
All
right, can we go to
I think we're good to move on, Robert.
Great, so Public Works is requesting 2 CIPs funded through general fund. One is the Potrero interchange for $5 million. As part of the CIP discussion, I have a very in-depth presentation for that. So if council doesn't mind, I'd like to reserve maybe a discussion for a little bit later. The second request is a flail mower for a skid steer attachment. Right now, we have a side attachment, which places our staff in the street while they weed abate on the roads. The flail mower will be in line and allow them to be a much safer operation. It contains the dust significantly more. And if we have any mines, it'll find mines. So that concludes my general fund CIP request.
That's it?
So that is the wastewater treatment, wastewater fund and general fund overviews. We previously showed you the transit fund and the rest of the funds, because you do have multiple funds with multiple revenue sources. We have rolled up into a formal capital improvement program presentation that Robert's going to start now, if you're ready. If there's any questions on anything that you've seen thus far, now would be the time.
Okay, yeah, I do have one that I missed way back when Thaxton was talking. And it had to do with, the brine line, the extra capacity and stuff. Is that already a part of, operating cost? Or is that something that we have to,
So we budget and pay a capacity fee and then a treatment fee. And we're at a point where we can maximize the capacity portion. So we're looking to lease additional capacity to accelerate our salt mitigation payback.
right, and the funds for that additional lease is already in your budget for operating?
Correct.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. That's all, thank you. Okay, I'm good.
All right. The city adopts a 5-year capital improvement plan each year in partnership with the budget. The CIP is a planning document that identifies funding sources and public improvements. The CIP does not represent all of the capital expenditures for the city, but does provide large physical improvements that are permanent, including basic facilities, services, and installation needed for the function of the community. The adopted City of Beaumont financial policy further defines the CIP as an investment of public and/or private funds of at least $25,000 and having a useful life of more than 2 years. Also, per the financial policy, it's worth noting that the funding shown in fiscal year 25 is programmed and allocated to the project. Funding shown in the remaining years are used to forecast the city's future capital needs. Each forecasted funding amount and source will be reevaluated during subsequent year CIP adoption. Lastly, the proposed CIP presentation and document is sorted into 3 sections: by funding, by category, and by department. All CIPs are listed in each section, but the sections give a unique perspective on the projects and funding and also make it easier for information to search based on need. All right, so the first section is capital improvement projects by funding. The chart, you can also follow along in the handout on your table if the presentation is not clear.
I don't see that. Oh,
Yeah. The spiral binder or the binder
Oh.
has it. I prefer the spiral binder.
you're awesome.
So if you're in the CIP document, it is page 14 of 30.
I think we all have this PowerPoint. We have either one, but I think we're all. Which one do you want to use?
Either or.
You tell me.
Spiral binding.
We'll find you.
Spiral.
All right.
How much was this one?
He's not saving, he's not
Oh.
saving us anymore.
All right, so the first section is capital improvement projects by funding. The chart represents the entire 5-year CIP, but please note that there are only a few projects that have multi-year forecasting. So the impacts to the numbers in the chart comparing fiscal year 25 and the 5-year CIP is very minimal. The total 5-year CIP project, excuse me, the total for the 5-year CIP is projected to be 60 million. With the top funding sources are general funds at 24% and grants at 22%. Combined, they make up roughly 50% of the funding source. Jennifer and the departments covered a lot of the general fund projects. There is some overlap, so please be patient. But let's take a look at some of the general fund projects. There are 15 projects that are being funded with general funds. The project requested with the most general funds is Potrero. As mentioned, we'll discuss Potrero specifically in the next few slides. If you exclude Potrero, the impact to the general fund is reduced significantly. The second largest project requesting general funds are the annual street improvement projects. The request for general funds reflects the council's commitment to supplement the 60% reduction in Measure A funds with general funds that Jennifer mentioned earlier. And just to revisit that a little bit, if you turn to page 17 out of the 30, you will see council's contribution in general funds for fiscal year 26, 27, 28, and 29. That represents the 60% that WRCOG is receiving, that council is supplementing with general funds. In fiscal year 25, staff is able to use CFD street maintenance funding and gas tax in lieu of the general fund. The intent is to do the same in subsequent years as funds are available. However, the forecast amounts represent general funds. Let's take a look at some of the projects funded by general funds. We'll discuss Potrero in detail on the next slide, but staff is requesting $5 million from general funds to close the funding gap. Community Services requesting a mini excavator in the amount of $27,500 to allow staff to trench for irrigation lines, install landscaping, and perform limited grading and ground maintenance. Community Services currently hand digs all trenches and plant holes. IT is requesting $150,000 for a new camera system that will provide security and deterrence to the internal and external buildings that city staff occupy, and to ensure that all staff is performing the dual validation for all logins. By providing a new camera system, this will allow the police department to monitor and provide evidence of any crime being committed on the city property. IT's goal is to centralize the camera system with the police department current camera system. One camera system for all the city of Beaumont buildings. Potrero. Led by the city manager, staff has developed a plan to fully fund Potrero in fiscal year 25. The total project cost provided by RCTC is $71,304,000. The current budget is $54 million. That 54 million is made up by 6.5 from past zone tip, 33.5 from TSEP grant, 8 million from RCTC regional arterial, and $6 million of general funds. On May 7th, 2024, next month, staff is proposing the fourth amendment of the fiscal year 24 through 28 CIP. As part of that amendment, staff will be proposing to increase the budget by $12,304,000, using $7 million in additional pass zone tip that was identified earlier this year, 1.5 from CIP fund balance from interest that the finance director was able to identify, 1.5 from road and bridge diff, and based on previous council comments, 2.3 million transferred from the downtown revitalization project. Staff is exploring a real possibility of using additional TUMP funds from RCTC or a private developer to replace the downtown revitalization funds at a later date. Staff will have confirmation in the next few weeks and possibly before the CIP adoption. Finally, in fiscal year 25, staff is proposing a $5 million general fund allocation to close the remaining funding gap. In total, the city will have provided $14.3 million of general funds, and local funds will have provided over 50% of the funding for the project. It is important to note that the total project cost is still an estimate, and as much as I want it to be cheaper or even stay the same, it's hard to predict construction costs in the short term. There is some inflation factored into that number, but it's hard to know exactly what will happen. And the chart on the screen is a good representation of where those funds come from. Any questions at this time?
Just a comment to say thanks. I think staff's really paying attention to this, and council has it as a priority, so I appreciate the extra effort that went into putting together a plan for this. Thank you.
What's in the current CIP for the downtown revitalization? Is that all of it?
It's $5
I
million.
didn't think so. It's 5, right? So
Yeah.
that still leaves,
2.6, I believe.
As Robert mentioned, there's some other conversations that are happening right now, but weren't confirmed before tonight. So what we propose is if those conversations prove to come to fruition as far as funding, we would back that 2.3 out and put it back into the 5 million that's programmed right now.
Good job.
looks good.
Thank you very much for that. Good work.
All right, continuing with projects by funding, the next largest category is grants. And there are 10 projects using grants for funding. If Potrero was excluded, grants would be the largest category for funding. Let's take a look at a few of those projects. Public Works is requesting $65,500 from AQMD to purchase an electric vehicle. Nicole is proposing $40,000 from AQMD. Based on the price, I think it's for a Yugo for council to use for city obligations. Public Works is proposing $130,000 from CDBG funds to continue to ensure sidewalk connectivity throughout the city. The $10.3 million SB 125 grant award provide startup funding for the design and construction of Transit's new vehicle maintenance facility, hydrogen fueling station, and EV charging infrastructure at the 4th and Beely property. Of the 10.3 million, 5.5 million is allocated to the hydrogen fueling station, 4 million to vehicle maintenance facility, and 800,000 to the EV charging infrastructure. This property is also expected to house an administrative operation facility and and tentatively a CNG fueling station. This project is crucial for Beaumont's transit's transition to zero-emission buses, as current legislation requires 100% of the buses purchased to be zero-emission starting in 2029. All right, moving to the second category, the second section, which is categories. By looking at the chart, circulation is the largest category at 57%, or 34 million, followed by facilities at 21%, or 12.7 million. Let's take a look at circulation and facilities. With circulation, there are approximately or exactly 18 proposed projects that will help with circulation and improve traffic. We can take a look at a few of those projects. Staff is proposing a traffic signal at Oak Valley Parkway in Palm. As proposed, it will be partially funded in fiscal year 25 and fully funded in fiscal year 26. Staff is proposing installing the flashing yellow protective permissive left turn lanes left turn arrows at Cougar Way and Beaumont Avenue to match the signal at Brookside and Beaumont Avenue. Staff recently obtained a signed contract for Crosstowns to install a 5-section doghouse at that same intersection, similar to Beaumont and 6th, for an interim solution. The interim equipment will be reused elsewhere when the flashing yellow system is installed. Lastly, staff is proposing to continue the annual street rehabilitation and maintenance project. Council recently approved the fiscal year 25 street project, and staff is preparing to advertise the fiscal year 24 project in May. Moving to facilities, there are 13 proposed projects that will address the city's facilities. Let's take a look at a few of those projects. Community Services requesting $400,000 to repair and improve Station 66. There's a long list of improvements that Doug was hoping to go over with you, if needed. PD is requesting $133,000 to upgrade the dispatch consoles. As Chief described earlier, there are 4 dispatch consoles in the dispatch center. Historically, the department has operated with only 2 of the dispatchers on duty during shifts. Due to funding, one of the consoles was not used frequently. It was not upgraded or kept up to date with the latest technology. With the addition of the dispatch leads, PD is now operating with 3 dispatchers in the center during shifts. Upgrading the 4th console is also vital to provide extra console to be used in the event of equipment failure or repair or during special events. Okay. Community Service is also requesting $240,000 to apply the epoxy sealer within 2 fire stations. The epoxy sealer will increase slip resistance, particularly when the floors are wet, and also protect the base of the walls from overspray when fire crews are maintaining their vehicles. All right, lastly, the 3rd section is by department. This is one category where the 5-year CIP chart, as opposed to the fiscal year 25 chart, is skewed towards Public Works, since Public Works has several annual projects forecasted out through the entire CIP. Because other departments are jealous, I'll focus on wastewater at 14%, or $9 million of million of the CIP budget. And all the other departments have been discussed. Wastewater has 18 proposed projects with 10 having funding in fiscal year 25. We can take a look at a few of those projects. Wastewater is requesting $165,000 to replace UV bulbs. The wastewater treatment plant utilizes a UV disinfection system. The components of the system are UV bulbs that have a state mandated replacement lifespan of 15,000 hours. Staff anticipates reaching that 15,000 hour limit in this upcoming fiscal year. Wastewater is also requesting $225,000 for ongoing pipe replacement. The intent of this project is to ensure that funds are programmed for the incidental replacement of sewer pipe in the event of failure, as the camera system identifies clogs or damaged pipes. This gives Faxon and his crew the ability to mobilize rather quickly. That concludes my CIP presentation. I think all the departments are here for questions.
Sort of unrelated, the pipeline work that's going on north of Potrero north of the bridge right there, what is that? Is that,
That's the Beaumont Mesa Force Main project.
okay,
That puts in a redundant and larger second line from the Mesa lift station all the way over to 4th Street where it turns into gravity before it flows to the plant.
got it, okay. Just always wonder every time I drive by there. Thank you, good presentation. I'm struggling with a very small expenditure. I don't understand the council vehicle. Are you guys using the council vehicle? I mean, I would think Uber, I would think reimbursement for mileage would be a lot less than 40,000. And so I just want to understand what's the demand for the council vehicle.
At times it's weekly.
What's that?
At times it's weekly. A request for from a council member for a vehicle to go
To go where?
different meetings, conferences, mostly assigned meetings, assigned committees.
The committees that we're assigned to.
Correct.
So I'm assuming that the 40, for a vehicle that's considered council vehicle, is still open for the city. So the way I look at it, this is just another city vehicle. Obviously, it's not a council vehicle per se.
We would prioritize for council.
Yeah, we'd prioritize
But it
it,
would
but
be
if it's
used-
sitting there,
Right.
obviously it can be used for anything. I do take advantage of the city vehicles. My 93 Ranger doesn't quite make it like I used to. So, I've been using transit, and the recycled one and whatever I can, they let me have. So, if that's something that we can continue to do, I mean, that's something that I'm fine with. But I think we always have to have the option of using a car. And as long as there's a car there somewhere, of course, I don't think we need to have a council vehicle. But it's up to staff to let us know if I'm imposing and taking away someone's car, then I surely don't want to do that.
No, and that's not the case. I actually proposed this, Nicole didn't. I want to ensure that you have the resources available when needed. And in my mind, it's a lot easier to have a council priority vehicle that can be checked out from Nicole or Shannon. When council requests a vehicle, we have to coordinate sometimes with multiple departments to see what's available, what's clean, what's gassed or charged, or I would prefer, it's really to make it easier on staff to create a calendar that says Mayor Pro Tem Lara is going to use this vehicle on this date and Councilmember Martinez will take it on this date. Once in the last year, we have had 2 separate council members request a vehicle for at the same time. And this is really to eliminate having to call multiple departments to see who has a vehicle scheduled. And then it would be used by Shannon, or Shannon doesn't, she runs errands and she doesn't get a vehicle allowance. And so she has to use a city vehicle.
So it's Shannon's car.
Basically, little more than.
It's covered with a grant
Hence
though, I
the
think, isn't
Tesla.
it? In this proposal, it's covered with a grant.
Yeah, and it is proposed with AQMD money, so it's not a general fund expenditure.
And it is a
It's not a
Yugo,
Tesla
so
at 40 grand, so I
I
don't
thought
know.
I saw a picture of a Tesla.
I thought Robert said Yugo.
I think we have a used.
It would be something like a Hyundai Santa Fe or smaller than that.
We'd consider renting the Vector to you.
The box truck, right? Yeah. Towed us around.
That make you
So
feel
if I could just jump in and add a comment to that, for Mr. White. So I've used it often as well. And it's a nice benefit to be able to come park your personal vehicle in the city parking lot, jump in the city car and have that use. I do like hearing that it's not a Tesla, because there are some conferences that are further away and wouldn't want it to be an electric vehicle and cause us problems, or we just couldn't use it and have to swap for another one anyway. And I do like the idea that staff could use it when we're not, because, you know, any purchase of that sort, we want to have it, make sure that it's well worth it and used often. And so I didn't realize it was even once a week that it was that requests were coming in. So that's even more than I expected.
And I'm comfortable with being grant money. I think it helps us understand it's not general funds money and it's still a city car. So that's my opinion. Administration car. And for the public's sake too, I just want, the public to know it's not, we're not getting a mayor car, we're not getting, it's simply there to have a disposal. No, sorry. I know you're up next, but, but you gotta wait in line too, like everyone else.
Robert, on the flashing yellows, how are those working out for us? Do you see improvement in traffic flow, or?
I do. I think they work very well. They interact with pedestrian traffic quite well. And then the primary use is to allow vehicles to navigate the intersection even when they don't have a dedicated arrow. So at a school site, that makes a lot of sense if it's safe to turn left. I think the flashing arrow provides that.
Okay, thank you.
I like them more than the 5-section doghouse on Beaumont and 6. That functions well and it serves its purpose, but the flashing yellow is a much more sophisticated system, and I see us using that more.
My concern is just that, usually, not that I would do it, but, when the light turns yellow, typically people want to shoot across to try to beat the red, right? And so you got the flashing yellow. I just thought that would be more of a safety concern than it would be a benefit, but it's good to hear that it's a benefit.
And then my other question is so this CIP summary, it includes projects that have no funding at the moment, but they're on our CIP list, correct? And if you can point me to the Pennsylvania on here.
Yes.
The grade separation
Yeah,
shows.
you know me, I'm always looking, make sure that's there. And
Shows it on
It's the
page
first
8.
section.
What page?
That's right, yeah, page,
Well, if you're on the project list in the spiral on page 8,
that's
it
right,
shows
page
you
8.
that currently for the grade sep estimated is 73,000. We have 8.7 in there, so a unfunded amount of 65.
where you at?
It also
Oh, you're
includes
here.
future CIPs as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a pretty hefty.
Yeah, but again, it's for
Oh, no,
public knowledge,
absolutely.
it's there, it's on our radar. And,
Yeah.
we approach it as we can, so. Okay,
Your bank account.
yeah.
Jennifer, if you're looking at page, just the top one in Petro interchange, 16 or 2016-003. That's not an account code, is it? It's just an identifier? Project identifier?
Project number.
Okay.
Mhm.
We changed the way we named projects from prior years. It used to be 2016 dash, like our CFDs. and
Right.
We've now gone to F for fire, P for parks, F for facilities, sorry, F for facilities, P for parks,
What's fire then?
FS,
PS,
PS.
public safety.
Okay.
That is correct. The future projects are in there to represent projects that we included in the DIF study.
Well,
So I have a question. So page 9 of 30 on the project list with the waste water management, master plan facilities, that one's the biggest ticket item at almost 105 million. Is most of that work in the latter part of that 5-year CIP plan? I don't remember anything major coming our way in the short term.
No, so the future projects are not funded in this 5-year fiscal forecast. They are long-term projects.
Okay, so that almost 5 million then would be more of a long-term project then? Am I correct?
That is correct. I think it will
Okay.
require, further analysis, further studies, and a funding plan.
And is the general concept, just as the city continues to grow and the wastewater needs expand, and that accounts for that?
That is correct. Specifically for the future projects, they need to be represented in the DIF as a nexus.
Okay.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Going back to the enhancements, sorry, I was writing down the ongoing costs. So it looks like ongoing costs, I show 1.9. In the future, 1.9 million of ongoing costs from what we're requesting for this enhancement. We included those in the forecast moving forward as well to ensure that those are consistently being allocated.
While Jennifer's pulling that up, the long-term fiscal forecast has multiple columns. The first one is the baseline. So if council does nothing new this year and just takes this current budget and adds a CPI to it, that's your baseline. And then you have your baseline with enhancements, and then you have your baseline with enhancements in the PD, the new PD station. So
Okay.
to answer your question, the column with the baselines with enhancements is
With enhancements, got it.
correct.
And that was on the initial general fund long-term forecast. Okay, thank you.
so just to summarize from my brain, so we're looking at an estimation of a surplus of 10 million in fiscal year 25, and with enhancements, 2.1 and 5.7 that were explained today, a difference of 2,066,831, which is unprogrammed, and that is not a part of any of this.
Correct.
So my concern, my question is, we're working off a forecast, but you're doing some great assumptions, because I always worry about spending down, when you don't have, when it's, it's estimated, we don't have that revenue yet.
Right.
So are you comfortable going down to a 2 million surplus from a 10 to 2 with the estimates that you have and your assumptions that you've used?
I am, yeah, and that, the 2 million, if there's, what we're looking for this evening is if there's anything council expected to see that you did not see in this budget presentation, we could talk about if you wanted to program that remaining $2 million. Just remember, this is revenues over expenses, right? So there's a remaining balance of the 2 million, and that's just for the fiscal year 25.
Okay. Yeah, I get always, you know, when you're spending down on money that you're just, you know, forecasting, you know,
Right,
you're
so-
off and then we're, you know, the other way.
Right, well, and remember, this is only what's forecasted for fiscal year '25. We also talked about fund balance. And so
Right.
your fund balance is what you have on your rainy day fund, your savings account.
Right, of
Right,
course.
and so that's not even talking about those dollars,
Right,
which are
you've already
there.
moved that across,
That's
yeah.
still
Right,
set
right.
aside.
Yeah, I realize that you've got that aside, so that's always the safety net that you have.
Correct.
But still, I get a little, you know, we've done so much work to get where we're at,
That's right. No, that's a good point.
so, all right, very well.
So to pick up on that, I'm not, I think I got lost a little bit there. I'm not sure, did I see somewhere in the presentation that you have an estimate of what our reserves will be for 24, 25? I mean, the revenue versus expenditures?
For 24, 20, well, your fund balance, are you talking about the
Yeah.
fund balance for what we've already programmed of use for the fund balance? And right now, currently, you're sitting at 8.1, and that's those available reserves that
Okay.
you have sitting in fund balance that council can choose to appropriate, should a need arise for that. You have, that's separate from your required reserves.
So this first page you have here, which is 23, correct?
Correct,
Says June 2023?
correct,
And that available reserves was 13.6 million.
correct.
Okay. And then the other page you just showed is,
Dollars we've programmed this current fiscal year
The council-
against that
Okay.
13 million. Mhm.
Council's already
already
approved
done
those
that.
two items.
okay, so we still have the 8 million in addition to the 16%, the 5 million and the 1 million.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. There was one thing that we briefly talked about that I didn't expect it to be here today. But I'd like for you to think seriously about it, and that was the concept that we sort of came up with, sort of on the fly up here with a business concierge, someone to, you know, help navigate new businesses coming here and getting through the whole process. So if, you know, I don't expect you to make all these changes now, because I know you're sort of in a flux with the economic development future. But I would like to have that revisited in the next fiscal year. Other than that, I think everything looks good. Still not sold on the council car, but,
Councilmember
It's a
White,
good
when
thing-
you say the next fiscal year, do you mean 24, 25, or 25, 26?
I don't expect you to put it into this one. Because I don't think you're ready for that. I think you still got too much other moving pieces when it comes to economic development.
Good point.
We,
So-
in essence, don't have any.
We don't have anything right now.
Understood.
Other than the
Consultant.
consultant that you're going to meet May 7th.
Understood.
Going back to this particular slide, I did want to point out something that Jennifer mentioned that I want to re-emphasize, and that is your self-insurance fund is sitting at $6.3 million, and the policy says a minimum of $2 million. I'm not sure if this is something that council would want staff to look at, but your self-insurance retention is at a level that could be increased. We'd have to run the numbers, but I'm throwing out an idea of, do you want to look at changing your self-insurance retention level, potentially reducing your premiums? I don't know if there's enough of a cost savings, but you're triple what the policy says, and that is because of a settlement this past fiscal year. So there was a check received that went back into the fund. And so I just wanted to point that out to you, that that is something that, if directed, we could look at running some numbers to see, is there a cost savings if we raise our SIR level? Will it reduce our premiums? We can draw down from that.
I'd be okay with that. We have, what?
There may not be
There
enough
may
of a
not.
cost savings, but it's worth looking at.
Would you be okay with that, Mayor?
Yeah, I would. I do have a quick question in reference to that. Do we have any like type of deductibles that get paid and does that come out of that fund?
That's your, yes,
Yeah.
deductible and, SIR, self-insurance retention is the same thing.
Okay,
We
so
have-
if there was anything that had come up that wasn't covered, any type of insurance policy that we have in place, whatever the situation may be, would come out of that fund as well?
I'm sorry, Mayor, say that again?
Yeah, hopefully my question's clear, but let's say there was an issue that came up that we did not have insurance for, and we had to settle a claim, would that come out of that fund?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
Okay.
And then obviously I imagine that staff looks at, to make sure that we have all the different types of insurance that we might need, correct?
correct. We do that
Okay.
annually.
So it looks
All
like.
right, very good. Okay, all right, I'm in support of it as well, thank you.
So just to be clear, we do have a consensus to go ahead and look at that.
Thank you.
I didn't see street signs on here. Is that something that can be added? Or is that something you can set up a program on? I don't know first of all, I don't know how many we have and I don't know what the expense would be, but if that's something that we could begin working in year over year, maybe in the 5-year plan to start replacing those.
Sure. So I did a little research. We have approximately 900 signs
Of course you did.
throughout the city. It costs about $318 per sign to replace. So, approximately $300,000 to $400,000 would cover an entire citywide street sign replacement.
Is that something council would be interested in bringing back or adding at this point?
Mayor Pro Tem, I would be in support of looking at that and then to see how it may tie into our proposed changes to truck routes, if there's any signage that's needed with that, if it would go in conjunction with one another or not.
That's a great point. We could look at that. And quickly, on street signs, if you go through some of the newer developments, some of them are already looking pretty set. Is there a warranty timeframe on some of those street signs? Or no?
When we install them, we have a material warranty that is much longer than a private development. But a private development usually has a 1-year warranty for
That's it?
material and construction.
Probably why they're going back. All right, thank you for that.
Robert, is that something, the 300,000 to 400,000, is that something that could realistically be done in 1 year?
No,
Are you sure you seemed a little iffy on that?
it would require a significant amount of staff time. It is a simple procedure, but we have to install a new sign post, and that's really where the time comes from.
Yeah, I wouldn't look to have that done in a year, but if you could come up with a phasing plan, so we just kind of have an idea, I'd be okay with that. Yeah.
Sure.
Can it be done in conjunction with the paving?
Well, that's kind of what I was thinking about too. That'd be something to look at.
Yeah, it sure can.
Is there something in the current budget or CIP for the Gray Street building, for those improvements?
Those are still programmed in the CIP, and it's project CDO3. So the money's still sitting there.
Which thing should I look at?
Let me find the page.
Page 8 of 30 in the CIP booklet.
Okay. And not to beat a dead horse, but back to the 8 million available reserves. That's not assuming any reserves plus or negative for the current fiscal year we're in, right?
Correct.
Because every year you tell us that we have such and such reserves, and then after the audit comes out, we have, over the last few years, always had considerable more than what we had planned on having.
Right, right. So when I'm telling you fund balance, I'm going off of audited financial
Do
statements.
you have any sense of where we will be at the end of the audit?
I have estimates, of course, that don't hold me to them
I
because
won't.
things change, but I'm estimating that we'll probably add another additional 2 million.
Okay.
For fiscal year 24?
Correct.
Yeah, fiscal year 24 year end.
Okay.
Really quickly, if I may, Nicole, we didn't check for public comment. Do we have any public comment? I mean, the room's packed right now, so I just didn't know if we had any of that or if there's anybody on the line.
I did receive a written public comment during discussion that I can read.
Could you please?
Sure. This written comment is from Ron Roy. He has questions for the council, stating, where are CFD future facility fees accounted for within the budget? For example, where are they accounted for in the budget revenues, taxes, fees, etc.? How much is the city collecting in future facility fees for 23-24? And what are the city plans for future facility fees for the next 5 years? And then I can check with the phone line just to see. Rudy, do we have any callers on the line?
I have no callers on the line.
Thank you very much, Nicole.
So Jennifer, can you define what future facilities fees are?
Yes, so we have different CFD pots, right? And so what's collected? We have CFD maintenance services, which is a special assessment that goes towards parks and public works and streets, those kind of things. We also have a CFD public safety special assessment that is used to go towards public safety costs, fire and police. And then we also have our CFD facilities, which is your debt service on bonds and the CFDs. Future facilities are we have a capital CFD Futures Facility Fund, which that is that any special assessments that are over the amount of debt service are placed in there and can be used for public improvements related to those CFDs. We do not currently have a specific or an amount for future facilities. We're doing the special assessments based on what's needed for the debt service payments. But there is a CFD fund that has future facility funds that are available for the CIP, which we have programmed some of those dollars towards the CIP program.
And can you point to the accounting of the CFDs in your budget presentation?
The CFDs are a part of transfers, the transfers that are on the general fund. They
Okay.
are specifically, they have their own fund so that we can account for them separately. And then the funds that are needed for general fund expenditures are transferred into the general fund to cover those specific programs. So what you'll see when we bring back the budget for adoption is you'll see all of the general fund programs and costs and the revenues that go towards those programs. And they'll be called out specifically by the fund type.
Okay, and I don't know if I remember in the past, the CFD accounting that you'll provide us with the budget breaks down by improvement area or just the entire CFD pot?
It's the entire pot, yeah. What we do is we have a meeting with our CFD administrator who puts all the budgets together for the CFDs. We go through those in the meeting along with city manager, and we review. They have it all separated out by the improvement areas. We go through those to identify the costs that go with that, and they're looking to add the amount that's needed to put on the levy. And so we go through all that as part of the budget process.
Okay, and I know our financial consultant is always looking at ways to lower some more, do some more refunding of the CFDs and lowering. I'm sure it's pretty hard with interest rates going up as high as they're going up now, but if we have any, it'd be nice to know if we have any estimates that we may be doing some of this in the next year. I'm not expecting you to know today, but when you bring back the budget, which is not, it's gonna be the next, what meeting are you planning on bringing this back for?
We plan to bring it to public hearing June 4th, unless council would like another meeting between now and then.
Okay. No, I personally am good with what we have till June 4th, but like I said, if we could get sort of an update from Mr. Bush to see, what his plans are, if there's some more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
There's several bonds that are ready to be called in 2025. And so
Okay.
it's Shane Spicer Consulting that we're working with on the CFDs.
Okay, all right.
Mayor, are you good on questions, sir?
Yes, as a matter of, I was gonna ask you CFD one about when the next bonds are coming due or termination, maturity, I think. And so I think with knowing that some are coming already in, next, calendar year, that's good to hear. Maybe going in the future, if there's stuff that is impacting a large neighborhood in terms of something, being paid off or reaching maturity, if we can, make sure that we share that with the public, that they understand that, hey, a portion of my safety has been paid off, it's matured, and now it's done, to share that good news. But I think in most of it, if they're 30 or 40-year bonds from the time that the home was completed, I think that we're still a little ways out on it.
Jennifer, that was a great response. I appreciate that detailed answer. Any other questions or comments from council? Miss Elizabeth, do you have clear, direct?
I would like to recap what I've heard tonight.
Okay,
So that
please,
we're prepared for
if you would do
June
that.
4th's presentation.
Before you go, I had one more question. It
Okay.
slipped my mind and finally reminded myself. The fee study that we've done, so that is being relooked at, correct?
Correct.
So is that fee study built into your assumptions with the budget? Not the fee study, the possible fee
The development
increases?
impact fee study?
Yes, yeah.
We actually had a webinar today with the developers to roll out what you'll be seeing on May 7th.
Okay,
Until they're adopted, I don't recommend putting those in your long-term fiscal forecast. We have not done that because we don't know what council's direction is going to be. And they don't take effect until 60 days after, so.
but so then you're using the current fees to
Correct.
figure out 24, 25?
Correct.
Okay. All right.
And just on that too, that the development and impact fees, they go into their own funds, and they're used to support the capital improvement program. They don't go into the general fund.
Okay.
And really quickly before I go back to Stewart Park. So Stewart Park, remind me, we're out to bid?
We are, and the bids are due May 17th or 18th, Doug? 17th. We
Okay.
did a job walk, a pre-bid job walk with contractors interested in bidding. We had 9 prime contractors respond to that and walk the job, which is encouraging. Those were not subs, those are prime contractors. We anticipate we'll likely bring the contract award to council on the 21st of June, because we need time to go through the bids, make sure there aren't any protests, and get the contracts and everything together. So you'll see the contract award June 21st.
Are you confident that we won't need to use any of the reserve to set aside to make sure that the bids come in to budget?
We set up a phasing plan on that project,
Right.
so we're
Right.
looking at phase 1, which is, roughly $9.5 million. We're hopeful that the bids are gonna come in under that.
And what's our budget for it that we have set aside?
I'm sorry.
What's our total budget for Stewart?
The total cost estimate on the whole project is roughly 14 million. We are looking at, we did apply for a grant.
Right.
We are a likely candidate for that grant. It made it through the first round at the state level, and it's moved on to the federal level. That will be to fund phase 2, because right now phase 2 is not funded. We're really focusing on phase 1 right now.
Is that a matching grant? Or that?
It's, 50-50. So we have about 3.2, 3.4 in capital programmed, but we're asking for the balance for phase 2.
Okay, so just keep that in mind, so,
Right.
if we come to the point
We
where.
won't know until November if we are awarded the grant.
So, okay, I hate to start something and then have a problem and not finish it, or it's
Understood.
over, and then have to worry about where we're gonna scramble for money, so.
When that particular project's gone through, has had a life of its own in the past.
Of
so
course, and that's why
I
I
agree.
wouldn't wanna delay it due to budget issues.
Good point.
Okay.
So phase one is fully funded, and then you have just over 3 that used for matching if we get the grant. Is that correct?
For phase two, correct.
Which is 9 that you're estimating, or what's the
Phase
second?
one is 9.4, 9.5.
And the second is,
That's fully
6.2.
funded. You've
Right.
fully funded phase one.
Okay.
right, and phase 6 had a price of, 8? I mean, phase 2,
6.4.
6, and we have 3, so we can get the
So
3,
we
then we can cover
had to
that.
program 3.2 in order to move
Okay,
forward with the grant.
okay,
Okay, all right, I'm comfortable then.
very good.
Okay.
So if I may, I'd like to just recap some things that we'll be bringing back. Long-term fiscal forecasts for fire services, that was mentioned. We did show that to council at one point. I'm just gonna give that as a handout on June 4th, just so you have an idea. Public safety includes police and fire, and that is roughly half your budget. The WRCOG settlement schedule, when will it be paid off? We'll have a schedule for you, similar to a forecast to show when we anticipate that being paid off. Christina and I will talk about the business concierge position and how that's gonna look once we get the economic development manager position is closing Friday, and we do have some qualified candidates that have already applied that are already doing a similar job in other cities, so we'll be looking at those first. We'll look at we'll do an analysis on your self-insurance retention, whether or not we can raise that. And then street sign replacement program, we'll do a phasing plan and tie it to the pavement management as far as, we'll do it in conjunction with that. Is there anything else that council would like to see on June 4th? So I just want to confirm that everything that you've seen in the budget is approved to move forward.
It is, but also the possible estimates on the CFD refunding.
Correct.
I didn't hear that on your list.
Okay.
Thank you.
I will verify with Mr. Spicer that he will be able to have those by June 4th. We just had the kickoff last week, and I've asked them to look at some questions that I had in the CFD program, so let me verify that he'll have that information by June 4th.
Okay.
And the administration car is okay to move forward.
We have no line item vetoes here, right?
Okay. You always have the power to veto. Okay, anything else?
I don't believe so. I think we're good. We don't have.
I would
any
like to thank
comments?
staff.
Yeah,
Th-
I wanted
this
to do that.
This was it was definitely, by the audience, you can tell there's a lot of people that have their hands on this budget. And without them, it would not have happened.
The directors did a great job in their presentations, even Robert. I appreciate that. It was really good. It's great to see staff at such a high level attend this and show interest in this. Back in the day, Lloyd, I don't think we would have ever seen anything like we had today.
No, I was just
Go-
going to
go
ask
ahead
you
and say it,
if someone
Councilwoman
could go back to one of the early meetings in 2015.
How
when we
many
did the budget
pages?
workshop and bring in the documentation that we were provided to make our budget decisions on.
How many pages was it?
I think it was 1.
8.5 by 11.
Yes. So it would be fun to bring, if someone could dig that up and bring it back, it'd be really interesting to see that.
That's on you, Nicole.
Yeah, I walked out of that meeting.
I know, I remember.
So excellent job, staff. We really appreciate the effort. Thank you for putting this together. It was easy to follow and very self-explanatory. I could even keep up, so kind of tells you where it's at. So with that, I will adjourn our budget workshop at 7:40.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Mayor.